right, welcome to activity 3 for our waves unit. This will actually be our final activity for this unit as we're going into winter break. And when we come back from winter break, we will then be talking about energy and energy production, which actually is related to waves. So that'll kind of transition us, and then we'll start with a new learning target and a new topic after winter break. But first, I wanted to create an activity that would help you experience waves. And some of you might be familiar with these experiences. But we've been talking about wavelength, and we introduced frequency, and we looked at it in a simulator a little bit. We then did a little research project on how technology in our lives utilizes waves. But I also wanted to put into perspective for us, how do we see or hear or feel waves? And so I decided to focus on two types of waves, just mechanical waves, which there are different types of mechanical waves. So you will learn a little bit about what is a mechanical wave. But the example that we're going to you focus on is sound. And then we're also going to talk about, I've got it down here, electromagnetic waves, which, again, multiple examples of them, but we're really going to be focusing then on the experience of light. Okay, so what you're going to do, I want you to read through this to learn a little bit about what is a mechanical wave. And I included some of the scientific vocabulary in there, but if you don't know what it is, you can actually click on this and it'll take you to the definition of oscillation. Okay. But really the big thing, okay, the mechanical wave is an oscillation of matter, which means physical particles of matter have to be moving. And then they are responsible as they hit one another for transferring the energy through a medium. And again, medium could be a gas, like talking through the air. Our sound waves from our mouth are hitting the atoms in the air, and they push out in these wave format. So that is an example of that. So then, just more information about mechanical waves. I then included a diagram here where you can look at the frequencies of sound and average range of hearing. So you can see humans are within this range. Bats are at a much higher range. Whales, okay, have a nice broad range. And then we've talked a little bit about medical ultrasound. So, that's way up here. So little diagram to kind of help you as you look at some of these videos or listen to some of these videos and then think about your answers. So first, when you go through this, I want you to play these videos in order. This first video, and they're really just audio clips, okay? So a couple things. Really be careful with the volume that you have it on. Because if you have it full blast, some of these will kind of hurt your ears. But if you have it a little bit quieter, I felt like it was just fine. And if you really don't like it, you'll at least get an idea of what that sound was and the frequency, and then you can pause the video or turn it off. Okay, so I do want you to play through the whole range first. I found it super interesting. And you also might pay attention to there's this little white kind of marker that's going to go from left to right. You might pay attention to, like, when do you actually start hearing the sound? So it says we should be able to, or the average person, from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, which is the entire range of this video. And there's definitely a range towards the ends that I couldn't hear. So I found that interesting. But then I broke it down. So instead of kind of this swooping sound, I wanted to focus, okay, this is what 20 hertz sounds like. And again, I put my speakers all the way up and I could not hear it. Okay, so I don't know if my speakers couldn't handle it or my ears just couldn't hear it. I'm guessing it was my ears. Then 100 hertz. Okay, should be able to hear this. Um, Video 4, 10,000 hertz. Okay, this one I'm saying specifically. Uh, if you turn the volume up, it can be very unpleasant. So make sure you are careful with your volume. And then 20,000 hertz, I would also say be careful with your volume because let's say you can hear it, then I'm going to guess that it's very, very unpleasant. But I could not hear it. So I turned it all the way up. I was like, man, I can't hear a thing. So I'm going deaf. But, that's not a big deal. So I found it super interesting. And I hope you do too. Then a short answer question: what did you notice about the frequency? Right? How did frequency translate into what you heard? So try and describe the tones or sounds that you heard based on the frequency. Okay. Question 2: knowing that sound waves are mechanical, so I want you to think in that mind frame. How do you think audio speakers create sound? Okay. Uh, you can try to make an educated claim based on what we just learned. Okay, just what you read and the audio clips that you listen to. Um, or if you really want to, you can Google search and research. How do speakers work? How do they create sound? Um, but the things I want you to consider if you're trying it on your own: what is needed for mechanical waves to occur? I kind of gave a little example with me talking um, when I talked about mechanical waves, and then what in the speaker is creating the waves, and then how are the waves then created? How are they getting pushed? So some things to consider as you try and tackle that question. Again, I do really want complete sentences to the best of your ability and like a complete thought. Okay. Next, transitioning from sound to light is what we're going to focus on. Electromagnetic waves. Again, it's a category of waves that are going to be different, has a couple different characteristics and properties that I want you to read. Okay. And then again, I gave you a figure 2 and a figure 3 for you to use as references when you answer the questions, but also to give you perspective, right? So I think it's super interesting that all of our visible light, everything that we can see and the colors we can see are within these wavelengths. And to reiterate that, okay, when you look at the grass, well, sometimes it's not green, but if you're just thinking about traditional grass, okay, you see green. Okay, you see wood and you see different browns, color tones. Okay, uh, so how you might think about how do these things have color if color is a wavelength, right? So super interesting if you haven't thought about it. How do we see color? What is color? And how does it relate to light that we're talking about? And so then that leads into figure 3, where this actually shows you our visible wavelengths. Okay, so this is showing you visible wavelengths, and then I'll blow it up a little bit. It's also showing you what then these wavelengths look like. So super interesting on how you could refer to all of these colors by wavelength. And then obviously, if you're thinking about, between green and aqua, green and blue, uh, if this is 550 nanometers and this is 490 nanometers, well, there's 60 nanometers of wavelength that transition between them. And so you can then see or, understand that there's a whole spectrum of endless possibilities of color. Because these nanometers can you technically be even smaller, and so the range in between them is almost endless, which is I think pretty cool. So then question 3, I gave a multiple choice. What is the typical range? you want to refer to these. But that being said, figure three I think would be easiest to interpret for this question. Question four. What property of waves determines the colors that we see? Again, these diagrams kind of give you that answer, but I really want you to put it into words for yourself. Question five. Select all that apply. I want you to think back to our first activity. Recall back to our introduction. What was the relationship between wavelength and energy? You in that activity, you had to say, uh, blank wavelength means blank energy, essentially. So I want you to select all that apply. There will be two true statements. And then that leads us to our final hypothesis. And this is going to be related to energy production. Like I said, after winter break, we're going to start a new unit with energy production. So based on your answered question five, wavelength and energy, how are they related? Hypothesize, how does a flashlight create electromagnetic waves? Which is, again, a more common way of just saying light. How does a flashlight create light? That we know are waves. So how does that happen? Uh, and then we're done. So this will be Thursday and Friday's activity. Oh, let me rephrase that. I'll introduce it, or I'll put it out on Wednesday. Technically, that's a student work day, teacher work day as well, right? So Wednesday, and then we'll talk about it for the first time on Thursday and Friday. I really don't think that this should take you into break. But the last thing I will say, winter break could be a great opportunity for some of you to get caught up on work that could benefit your grade. So double check your grade. If you're not happy with it, really take honestly a day or two to turn in some assignments for all your classes, and then try to enjoy the rest of your break. Okay, let me know if you have any questions, and keep up